Today's podcast is brought to you by the letter H and T. H stands for horror, T stands for thriller. We're going to go into the differences between the two. We're also, because this is our second episode, we're going to talk about how sequels don't really live up to originals. Not saying that there's not good horror sequels, but the majority
Irish
of them
Bandit Rob
are just kind of like
said thriller night.
Whatever.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're not coordinated. And then our second thing we're going to be talking about, well, the first thing we're going to be talking about, and I think it's really important, is what makes us qualified to do a horror podcast. What gives us the right? First off, we're going to be talking about, the first little bit of our horror fandom and where it really turned the page that it's like, hey, this is the form of entertainment that, I love.
Irish Bandit Rob said, because you love horror movies.
Yeah,
Next question.
I get that one, but we gotta go into our backgrounds in horror movies, what makes us the people qualified to talk about them. I do get any John or Jane Doe
Pokemon
can
community game.
go on and
said,
actually talk.
Demon 8 event spawn a wild Meowstic appears. Demon 8 event spawn catch it using poke catch. Winners revealed in 90s.
That's going to suck.
It works for certain things. I'm going to see if I can mute that one.
In the meantime, I'm going to take over while you're doing that. Because it's not like we just want to be like, oh yeah, we're just random fans that think we know hot shit, We kind of want to give our reasons why we feel like we can do this. And yes, obviously we do enjoy horror. But it's just like me saying oh, I'm a fan of, let's say, anime, but I know nothing about it. Not enough to start a podcast. So that's kind of where we're coming from. We've been big fans of horror for a long time, so we're kind of going to jump into that with
Marley
our
and Baxter
experiences.
said,
I know Danky is going to do
try,
his,
dad joke,
introduce
bong,
himself more.
stoned,
I'm going to introduce
danky,
myself more.
store,
I know some
hug,
of you guys already know
slap,
who we are.
8
We're
ball,
actually pretty close friends with a
fireworks
few
for
of you.
some fun chat
Rob.
commons.
But yeah, that's kind of where we're going to get started with that. But while you're doing that, is it cool if I introduce myself there, Danky?
For sure. I'm just trying to make sure it's not going to be like Marley and Baxter says, Pokemon community says. So I might actually have to kind of hide under here. I know you're not going to do some weird shit because I'm in the room. Mr. Editing, Mr.
No one caught it.
It's just me.
John asked
it's just you. We're on the internet alone. Let's have some fun.
You do me, I do me. Yeah, so we'll jump right into it. My name is Austin. I've been a big fan of horror movies ever since I was 16, and I'm 23 right now, so that's 7 years. Yes, that is correct. 7 years. Growing up, I was never too big into them because obviously I was a young little child. Got too scared. I got scared of the Insidious trailer when I was a kid, and I refused to watch anything like that ever again. But then the thing that got me into horror, believe it or not, was wrestling. I know a lot of people would start off saying they were a big fan of Kane, the Boogeyman, Undertaker, guys like that. But for me, I was more into the independent wrestling scene. And there's a guy named Vinny Marcellia, now goes by Vincent, and he was known as the Horror King. So I looked him up, watched a few of his matches, watched some of his YouTube things, and I just fell in love. I'm just like, this is pretty cool. So I started watching more. I started off with the generic slasher films. Started off with Michael Myers, went to Friday the 13th, then A Nightmare on Elm Street. I just developed into there with my own personal interests with horror. Because as I mentioned last week, my favorite horror movie is The Thing from 1982, that adaptation. So that's, I believe, I don't know if I would say I'm too qualified, but 7 years, I think that's pretty good of watching horror movies. Sorry, give me 1 second. Big gulp for big boy. Oh, man. Yeah, how's she going over there, Danky?
I think I figured it out, but we'll see if that's how it's going, because that Pokemon chat's is going to be like non-stop for us.
Yeah, so overall, my name is Austin. Been watching horror for over 7 years. Favorite horror movie ever is The Thing from 1982.
Boomer Clay 86 said, "Hi."
Hi. How's she going today, Boomer Clay? Boomer Clay? Boomer Clee? Which one was it? Clee? Do you know who that is?
That's the person in the front room.
The
Boomer Clay 86 said, "Awesome."
I love that. Love to hear it.
I'll have to figure this out later. We do have a new thing that's going to say stuff. I wonder if I can just. And yeah, so that one we'll keep the Marley and that, but I think we're gonna get rid of the Pokemon for that when I'm not actually on Twitch playing games.
Yep.
Because it will get kind of annoying trying to talk to you guys at the same time. It's funny you said wrestling as the catalyst to make yourself a horror fan. I know with me, some of the earliest horror movies I saw was movies like Anaconda, The Invisible Man starring Kevin Bacon, movies kind of like that. There was a lot of weird ass horror shit going on in my youth, such as Courage the Cowardly Dog, or Tales from the Crypt, or I don't remember what the show's called, but a friend of mine would know it. That's the line that they would always use in the show. Like, this is a true story. I heard it from a friend of mine. You also had Goosebumps and
That's a good.
What was the there was like Truth or Scare on the Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah. That was the one around the campfire. Are You Scared of the Dark? They would always have like a good story by the campfire, and they would talk about stuff like that. But to actually capitalize on your horror thing, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I don't even want to call myself a fan anymore with just how much, even if it's not wrestling, how much of my time and day is just dedicated to that format, where I'm either watching wrestling, listening about wrestling, or training for wrestling, and that's either in a ring or outside in my gym, because I like fucking wrestling metal, and I don't really like how some people don't have proper gym etiquette, like done using a machine, fucking wipe that thing down, or you don't need to take 7 sets of weights with you back to your bench.
Now that's true horror right there.
Yeah.
You have to deal with people like that
So,
in the gym.
Going back to wrestling, because I don't want to go down a rant tunnel.
Yeah.
There was a legend who just retired like 3 years ago.
Oh,
Under the name The Undertaker. I shouldn't even have to talk. The Undertaker's almost a cultural icon at this point.
Oh yeah, you ask people, anyone on the street, they'd be like, "Hey, do you know who the Undertaker is?"
Well, like they all know.
Yeah, it's like saying John Cena. They're like, "Hey, do you know John Cena?"
Hulk Hogan in the 80s.
The big names: Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, John Cena, and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I'd argue The Rock. I know The Rock has a bad taste in his mouth with him and Oprah's Hawaii thing that didn't really. I don't want to talk into this because it has nothing to do with it.
I don't even know what that's
But
about.
I do know he took a huge hit from Black Adam to. The Rock is just a cultural icon. He went from wrestling to being arguably one of the biggest movie stars.
Yeah, but then, yeah, I guess.
I mean, who would you say is a bigger movie star than The Rock? I'm not talking about like people like Meryl Streep or people like the Baldwins where they're established. I'm talking about a guy that had $7 in his pocket when he moved back in with his mom and dad, and he only had that $7.
Oh, I got the name right away. Dave Bautista. Another wrestler, actually.
Another wrestler, but you know, The Rock beats him out by an extra 10 years with The Mummy Returns and The Rundown.
I'm gonna say this right now. I as much as I love The Rock, he plays the same character in every movie. He's like the modern day Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I was just about to say, well, I don't hear you complaining about Arnold.
But Arnold, I love Arnold. Gotta give him love.
But
sorry, we're getting off topic.
Yeah, so like that's the Mount Rushmore of wrestling. So The Undertaker, when I was growing up, was scarier than most horror films coming out at the time. And like I used to have nightmares about The Undertaker. Like this is Ministry Undertaker, where he's sacrificing like people. He's talking in tongues, stabbing Midian and all that stuff. You know, he's doing all this scary shit to the point where, you know, having nightmares as a kid. Like I said last week, I had nightmares of Mars attacks. Like I saw that movie very young. But what really went from point A to point B is in that group of the Ministry as one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, without a shadow of a doubt. Naked Midian. You see the fact you said who is how stupid that is. Naked Midian. You don't remember him going around and just interrupting matches with a fucking little like.
No, I think I tried to. I wasn't watching wrestling at that time, or I blocked all memory of that guy.
He would interrupt matches coming on dead. No, but for real, this is like your blood and honey that you threw me to with a loop last week. My favorite wrestler who's still active from Canada, who's from the 90s, isn't Chris Jericho, it's Edge. Edge had a song called Never Gonna Stop, which was a Rob Zombie song. And around that time, I was getting kind of into metal. Triple H also helped me out by like introducing me to Motorhead.
Oh yes.
Like, come on, like wrestling introduced me to metal. That's where I get kind of like weirded out how less metal wrestling has gone.
Right?
But
it's weird how wrestling has kind of influenced a lot of our taste and stuff. Like for me, I became a horror fan because of wrestling. I became a metal fan because of Triple H's theme song.
That's where I'm trying to get to that point, but I keep like not just you. Well, this is what happens with someone who just had a nice stab rip and has ADHD. This is where I know, like, oh, we'll get 3 topics.
Yeah.
And we'll almost have like a topic per hour.
We have a plan of what we want to say, but I don't think we're going to get through all of what we want to get through.
I think we will. I think we will because, you know, should we just go after introductions into like what you want to talk about, where it's the difference between horror and thriller? I'll read what I wrote down off of mine.
I think you said it the best, honestly. Like when we were in the living room there.
Yeah, but we'll get into that. So Edge had a theme by Rob Zombie, and as soon as I heard the theme, just like with Motorhead, I had to check out all this music. And this is where I I am jealous of kids born around this time.
Oh yeah.
Because I had to go out, convince my dad to buy the Rob Zombie CD, Past, Present, and Future, and I was still missing songs off that I was like, man, I wanted to listen to Educated Horses, and it's not on this album, and it's begging, it's trying to do extra work, it's going over to people's houses and getting them to rip you CDs. Where I had a lot of people, oh, I'm not going to do that. It's like, I'll buy the CD. No, that's not supporting the artist the proper way. Okay. But I found out through a lot of other metal fans that Rob Zombie had this movie out called House of a Thousand Corpses.
That's your bread and butter.
I can honestly, and it's almost just like how there's horror movies before The Shining and then horror movies after The Shining, and you can make a very, you can basically put a pole in the ground being like, okay, this is new horror. This is classic horror. This is movies where you have more of Keeping Tom, and movies such as the original Frankenstein, Dracula, those
like the black and whites.
The black and whites, not only the black and whites, but I think it's very artistically shown that the last black and white horror film was The Shining. It was just kind of like there. The moment where I watched House of a Thousand Corpses is almost where you can put the same line. Shows I watched before, and then shows I watched after House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, that one scene will always get me where the cops come and raid. Well, they're not even raiding. They're just like, have you seen these kids? Well, I'm going to go take a look out back. And
it's Devil's Rejects.
What?
That was Devil's Rejects.
No. They're looking for the people. This is about halfway through the movie. This actually sets off for the cop raid in the second movie. This is the brother.
Oh, they're looking for the cheerleaders.
Cheerleaders, the missing 4 kids.
Yeah, the dude's daughter. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. I was
and the dude's with him, and he actually goes to the back.
Oh, can we talk about this scene for a little bit?
We can.
But you finish what you were saying. But I want to talk about.
So, like, the one cop goes in for coffee with Mama, and then the other 2 go behind back, and they open up a door. And as soon as they open up the door, there's a woman chained up in there screaming. And then Otis comes around, shoots the dad, I believe.
No, shoot the cop first.
Either which way.
Yeah.
He shoots one of them first. And then he puts whoever on the knees. And there's a tracking shot where he's just holding.
That's the scene I want to talk about. And like,
yeah.
Can we talk about how fucked up that is? Because this guy knows he's going to die.
It's just a matter of when, and maybe there's a matter of like, maybe he's not going to pull. Maybe someone's going to come around out back and tie my arm. Like there's going through that was so much of a, it's going to happen.
It's like
it's a matter of when.
I think the best way I think I could explain it is, when you have a joke with a friend and it goes off for a long time and it stops being funny, but you still say that same joke, and then it gets funny again. And you laugh twice as hard. And it's so funny because it's so long. It's so much scarier because it takes so much longer for him to shoot the gun. Because, like you said, you just don't know if like it's going to happen. But then you realize no, it's going to happen, and then you're just like, he's still waiting.
He's playing with them.
Oh yeah, just like he shoots the gun at the quietest part. Like the music stops. And then you're expecting it to be this big bang, but no, it sounds like a normal gunshot, which isn't as loud as you might think.
I will say it's really hard to pick which movie I like more between Devil's Rejects and House of Thousand Corpses. But how I like to look at it is kind of very close to how I look at the Terrifier movies, where the first one was just, let's get these people on screen.
Give them a base.
Give them a base. Give them who these people are. Because in House of Thousand Corpses, I will say making Otis albino and just kind of giving him more of a creepier, like, who the fuck is this guy kind of vibe works really well for that movie. They kind of made him more rugged and more. What's the guy's name from the fucking? And this is something we'll talk about too. But Charles Manson had one of his followers literally walk in. I think his name was Tex. Walk in and literally say to Roman Polanski's wife, "I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work." That's where that line originates from. But yes,
that was a direct quote.
That was a direct quote. I guess we'll talk about this because I was going to talk about with you later on. Anything you want to add into Devil's Rejects, House of Thousand Corpses?
Not really. I think we talked about it last podcast.
Yeah.
Because like Rob Zombie said himself, like those were supposed to be like, you could look at them at like 3 different movies. Like they weren't supposed to be sequels to each other. You could.
That's the line I like to think is you could.
I like to think it's all like one continuous story in the same universe.
Yeah,
like,
I can't look at
the first one
them.
happened years before the second one. The second one, I believe, will take place like a couple of years after the second
one. I think the third one they're trying to be like, however much time happened between Devil's Rejects and this movie, IRL happened in that one. Like they are incarcerated for the same amount of time that we were watching them. But like, if I'm going to talk about my origins in horror movies, I have to mention these movies. And these movies set out on, like, I put Rob Zombie's Halloween on the honorable mentions. Don't get it twisted. The first one is obviously the first one in the franchise. Like the first John Carpenter's Halloween is better than any of the sequels.
Oh hell yeah!
And
even the new stuff. I hate the new. The 2018 version.
I didn't mind the 2018. I hate the line where the cops like, I let him out so that I could see what was going on. But where I put the 2007 one on is I like the kid stuff. I like the build up.
His backstory?
His backstory. The build up. How they're showing that the kid is killing his... Right? What?
Sorry, you had your one beard hair in the mic. I was watching that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Sorry, go on. You like how backstory?
They have the backstory for the kid. They don't have this kid instantly killing people. It is a slow burn. It is kids making fun of him at school for having a stripper for a mom. It is an abusive alcoholic stepdad. Him already showing the one sign of injuring animals, killing his pet rat.
Yep.
You know, you have this burn that up until Carrie Moon kills herself, you can take that spice and put it onto the original Halloween, and you might have the best movie, the best cut ever made.
See, I kind of differ from that because, like, I do like the as much as people may disagree with me, I do like remakes sometimes better than the originals. However, this is not one of them because I like the idea that Michael Myers was just this normal kid, but for no reason he just did what he did for no reason, and that's what makes him such a mystery to me.
And you know, that's what I like for this podcast is we do not have to have the exact same opinion, but we respect each other for having each other's opinion. Because I like your analysis of that too, where it's just like, okay, I have to read that. I have no idea what we're talking about, but it's good to see you, Danky. I'm ripped out of my mind right now. Hell yeah. We are just talking about what makes us qualified to have a horror podcast. And the simple answer is fuck you, it's because I feel like it.
Yeah, because this is something that we both like.
But I like to think we actually have history with horror in a way where we have a passion for this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, I would be lying if I said I do not want this. I do want this to transform into a catalyst for one day probably having a horror con in Saskatoon,
that would be awesome.
even if it's for a day,
Oh yeah.
and then try for a weekend. A lot of my podcasting that I got so excited about is from Busted Open with Dave LaGreca, and how much I can disagree with Dave as much as the next man, but I can't disagree with his or wrestling. And it's the same passion I have for horror films. But yeah, after the Rob Zombie one, I went on a splurge. I watched any horror film I could get my hands on.
Oh yeah.
And that brings us to present day, where it was so hard to make that top 10 list.
Right, so before we move on here, I gotta ask, do you prefer the original remake of the Rob Zombie movie or the sequel? Because I know there are a lot of people who don't like the sequel.
I don't like the sequel for many reasons. One of the reasons is he's maskless during it. I never thought Saskatoon would ever get a comic convention. Now we have one for 10 years. I hope we get a horror. And you know what? Even if we start a hashtag of HorrorCon Sask, like, that would be a cool one. Like, maybe start a HorrorCon Sask. I don't know what happened here. I changed something on here, and now the voices aren't being picked up. So we can't really hear the voices. So
No, we had them going, but then we kind of had to cut them out. But I guess it just went over. But while he's trying to figure out that, I'm gonna kind of talk about more about how, and we could get into this for as another episode, but how much horror has changed over the years. Because, for example, we could talk about how messed up The Exorcist was, like with Reagan going saying like, "Oh, your mother sucks cocks in hell," and people were like disgusted by that comment. No, just last week, Danky and we went to go watch Terrifier 3, and we're laughing because it's so messed up.
I'm pretty sure we had a handful of people leave.
You think so?
Oh, I knew.
That's probably the first 10 minutes then.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna figure this out, but
Really.
we'll figure this out later.
But like, my point being is just like, I found the second remake of Rob Zombie's Halloween to be much more brutal than the first.
Brutal, yes, but does it make sense?
No, because there's a lot of things that were wrong with the movie, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
I liked how brutal it was. I think that one gave me more of an uneasy feeling rather than the first one.
Yeah.
But like, just the difference between John Carpenter's Halloween versus Rob Zombie's, I still gotta go with the original.
Well, the original.
Just because of how Michael Myers was when he was an adult, like when he had the mask on. Because this is the reason why I don't like any of the new Michael Myers. I think the 2018 Halloween was okay, but just Michael Myers to me is supposed to focus more on his stalker, his personality of him just following people, playing kind of like mind games. Because we saw in the movie, he was watching Laurie Strode, and then he had the fucking blanket with the sunglasses.
Yeah.
And that was like, that was part of his personality. As much as people think that he doesn't have a personality, he really does. But then with the 2018 one, it was more about the kills rather than him actually being creepy. I mean, there's one scene in particular that I remember from that one. He just got his jumpsuit back.
Yep.
And he's in the washroom. You remember that scene? It was in the trailer as well.
I do.
And even after the podcasters too, because they were trying to get him on their podcast or something. But the dude's hiding in the stall, and Michael always sees these steel toe boots just walking in, and it's quiet. The guy looks at the feet just walk in the stall, sees the hand come over the top, and just drops a shit ton of teeth. And I thought that was fucking creepy.
I think where you want to talk about Stalker in that movie is where motion sensor lights, guys in the middle of the yard, and it's not picking up Michael at all. Slowly gets there. What the original idea for Michael Myers was, in my opinion, that he wasn't called Michael Myers in the script. He was called the Shape.
The shape.
He was called the Shape because he was supposed to be more like a shadow right behind you, and at the last minute, it gets you. Like that's the stalking of it. You'll always have it though, where you get the last 45 minutes of a horror movie being the final girl versus the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like that hasn't changed. The only arguable time it has was with, I consider it the first one, where it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We have 4 deranged people, and if people are like 4, I only see the cook. I only see the cook. I only see. Someone just subbed for 6 months.
Go, baby.
I made it so that it was your favorite serial killer movie.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Where I swapped up a lot of these channel things, and a lot of them I hope are surprises for you.
That's right, because I heard that, I was just like, what is that? Am I going crazy?
No,
But then you turned it up, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, I turned it up through here, so these guys heard it. It's just like, thanks again, Graver. Good seeing you. Love that Freddy song, yep. But going back to what we were talking about, and this is a hard thing about doing a podcast, is
We get sidetracked so easily.
getting sidetracked and trying to get back to like on point. So we're already talking about sequels. Like obviously you're talking about remakes as well, not living up the original hype of the first movie. And I wanted to talk about that on our second podcast. Not that I didn't have faith in our second podcast, but I like to think of it as we're able to talk about something that has been plaguing my mind for years, and it's why don't the sequels ever live up?
I think it's because they feel like they have an expectation to live up to, so they try and make it even. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like they try and live up to it, but that kind of tarnishes their ability to keep it the fun of the first one.
Yeah.
I think that's where it comes from.
I think with the first movie is you get way more plot in that movie, where you will get way more who these characters are, what's the backstory for this one character, and by the end of the movie you have like maybe 2 survivors, 3 survivors. You have a kid in the movie. And we see it in movies nowadays with Terrifier 2 and 3, where you do have a lone survivor. And unless you have like a Lori, unless you have like Sienna, unless you have like someone that can be the hero for the next movie, you're always going to miss on the second hit, because with the second hit, now you have to say who's Banjo and I don't even fucking remember their names, but who are these 4 people in the Devil's Rejects? Why do we care about these people in a hotel room? Why do we care about these kids going camping? We don't even know these kids. So that now you're spending like the first 30 minutes putting these people into horror columns where you have the nerd, you have the black guy, you have the hot chick, you have the jock, you have the nerdy girl with past issues. So you have these cliches where you have to fill, and it almost becomes a redo of the first movie. And there are some movies where I'm wrong. There are some movies where I'm wrong about that. But when you go, we were even talking about Scream 3
We
being,
were.
and the one thing we just can't remember that movie. I remember the first movie.
I remember the first. I remember the second very well.
I remember the Scary Movie version of it too. I think Scary Movie really helps me appreciate Scream a little bit more.
What's that smell? My ass. My ass.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to get that in there, but
Well, why do you have the vacuum cleaner going into your room every
I
night?
told you not to come in my room, Mom.
But yeah, it's just, we have it where you get stuck with these cliches where you have to have these movies, and you have to have them one where they're having sex and they get killed.
Yeah. And did you know that in sorry, I know I'm going back to the Halloween movie, but it was not intentional for Laurie Strode to be not too sexual and just have her be like the goody two shoes. Like that was totally the reason why she was that way was just so she wasn't sidetracked by love or lust or anything like
Yeah.
that. That was all by accident.
Yeah.
And what do you think would have happened? Like, do you think that would have changed the movie if she was like in a relationship or if she was lusting for someone, like just sex wise?
Well, if you were going to do that, you would have had to have the last kill be a very brutal kill of her boyfriend. I also have a wedgie
Or-
right now, so
Yeah, has been writing up
Yeah.
to me at work all the time.
that was just happening, and I'm like, maybe we'll get a couch in here. Couch
Yeah.
would be way comfier in here. Move that. We'll figure this out. We have
Yeah.
time.
But yeah, like it's something for us to get behind the final girl. In this case, Laurie Strode, if she had a boyfriend. Because going into the next movie, would just be like, oh, she just went through something super traumatic. But I like the way that the original Halloween was. I think that was pretty cool.
I think sometimes they also get caught up with releasing trying to release horror movies year after year after year. We had that with the Paranormal Activity movies. We had that with the Saw movies. We had that with the Friday the 13th movies. And you get these movies that are coming out year after year after year that when you actually go back to watch them, you're like pointing out the flaws. Like, I can't point out any flaws in the Friday the 13th movies till they replaced Jason with that other guy. But then Jason Lives is really good because you bring back the original guy, and when he gets resurrected, the first thing he does is go up and kills the people that resurrect him. So
Yeah.
you do get that. There are sequels that do save movies. Like you last week did not like any of the Nightmare
I like
on
this.
Elm Street movies, but
I like the second one. The first and second.
what about New Nightmare?
Which one was that again?
That's the one where Wes Craven came back in '94 and just made Freddy the villain that we all wanted, where he wasn't fucking doing puns every 5 minutes. Have you seen that one?
I've watched all of them in a row, but that was years ago. I gotta do that again. Actually,
Yes,
you should
yeah.
come over for that.
Well, we could have it here and just tell people when we're watching, and then they can join with us, and then maybe I'll put it on the computer screen or move this TV so that it's kind of like right here.
Dude,
So,
I'm gonna talk about all of the movies in one day.
oh, that's fair. Only if you come over to my house and do the same thing with Lord of the Rings.
Oh hell yeah, that's
That is
fucking 14 hours, if
Oh.
not more. Of course, yeah.
And these are the extended ones.
So let me see one.
I don't even see where the
4 hour, like
Yeah, runtime right here is 3 hours.
Yeah, this one's almost 4 hours.
This one is 4 hours and 23 minutes.
How long is that one?
This one is 3 hours and 48 minutes. Yeah, you're watching these movies all day.
Yeah.
Throwing the Hobbit movies through the weekend.
Yeah, like that's probably 14 hours right there. With like
Oh,
breaks and all that.
if you want to see something very cool,
Ooh.
these are all my horror movies.
Oh, Lake Placid 2, Disturbia, Ghost Ship. I want to see Ghost Ship. Which one?
Hey, that one sucks.
The Lords of Salem. I've heard that one sucks.
Yeah.
But I still want to.
I still know what you did last summer. That one doesn't live up to I know what you did last
I've
summer.
never seen that one, actually, believe it or not. Like this one, the first one.
Yeah, it's really good.
I've been meaning to, but I've been just so busy. I've been watching stuff on YouTube.
Yeah. His ex and him watched the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I've been so busy with.
I don't know why that's in there, but that's in there.
Oh, come on, you know exactly why that's in there, you little freak.
I love that movie.
Can you guess what it is?
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
There we go.
But then you have the Friday 13th there.
Now, I gotta check. You better have. I'm gonna be up. Oh, I don't think you have it.
Keep going.
You know exactly what I'm looking for, don't you?
Freddy versus Jason.
No.
There's a lot.
There is someone who I believe doesn't like me just because of like my view on this horror movie. This is a hot take, but I think that the remake of Friday the 13th was better than majority, not all, but majority of the Friday the 13th movies.
Well, the remake. That one's good. The remake was good. Don't get me wrong, but I had a long ride where I'm watching the originals, and the originals sit in my heart a lot.
Oh, here we go. Ooh, Jeepers Creepers. Oh, I gotta say, since we're talking about sequels, Jeepers Creepers 2, I think, is better than the first one.
Yeah,
I will say that. They did such a kick-ass job with that one. It was kind of...
Yeah, I'll take the remake over that one. I'll take the remake over Jason X as well.
Yeah.
Okay, like I'm not gonna say they're better or worse. I'm gonna say it really depends on if I want to watch Jason's mom kill a whole bunch of teens in the first movie.
I don't know. Jason X to me wasn't scary. I think it was just more of a... I believe it was supposed to be a comedy, kind of. Yeah. But I believe that Jason X was supposed to be more of a funny...
I'm not saying it could be fun, but it wasn't scary.
No, it was like poking fun at itself somehow. But like, you remember the one kill where the girls are in the sleeping bag? He just fucking grabs them, just hits them against a tree like this over and over.
Yeah.
I love that. But
I know.
if we're talking about like the worst Friday the 13th movies, Jason Goes to Hell. That didn't even barely had Jason in it, just had a spirit. Oh yeah.
And he is in love with these movies that I'm showing him right now, being like,
dude, I had no idea you had all these.
Yeah. Well, I am a horror fan. I should have them.
Have you seen the new Exorcist?
It's on my list. There's a lot of movies. Black Christmas right here.
I heard that one's a good one.
That is a really good one. We'll have to do our.
Wait, is that the remake though?
I believe so. It might be the remake.
I see that. Yeah, it looks like the early 2000s.
My favorite movie.
There you go.
One of my favorite movies. Oh, this one. If you've never seen that one,
What is that?
that's either Let Me In or Let the Right One In. It's a vampire movie from the Nordic region of. And now you're into my Alfred Hitchcock collection.
Yeah.
Basically, the master of horror and thriller.
Oh, the birds.
And I know a lot of people Fight me on that. Fight me on that, please. I'm just saying what I feel.
Ooh, The Legend of Boggy Creek.
The Bigfoot one? Yeah. Yeah, these ones over here are just like my bonus features.
Yeah.
But as you can see,
I gotta get
this
one of those.
this book right here is just filled with horror movies. We have a handful of watch-alongs that we will say, hey, we're watching this. We can't post a screen on here due to copyright rules, but you guys can basically watch this on our Patreon when we do get a Patreon of horror movie commentaries. I think that would be really fun. And that's only on our Patreon. We'll do watch-alongs.
That'd be fun.
Because at the end of the day, we have to be able to make money so that we can afford to go out to these horror movies.
Yep. Give you our thoughts.
Give you your thoughts, and it helps out in the long run. Like, the lucky thing is with this, we had Danky Bongs. I'm not going to say that I was one of the biggest streamers, but I was able to make it to affiliate. I have made money off of this. It's just, if you don't have the time to actually be on Twitch every day and be connecting with people on Twitch, you're not going to make that much money off Twitch.
Mm.
I know with me, we were trying to throw a lot of stuff at the a lot of darts at the dartboard and seeing which one stuck, but with our one promoter, he has fun with having wrestling events on the same day that WWE has their wrestling shows. And
I wonder why we don't draw.
Oh, we do draw. We actually draw a lot. Like
we do, but we could still probably be more.
I do see what you mean. I disagree, however, because every single time we're on a show, I don't know if it's just him trying to talk up how big the crowds are, but he does say I've had to turn people away.
That much is true, but then I've also heard him say that we're expecting 1,000 people at the door, but then only like 100 show up.
I mean, that's the thing about being a wrestling promoter. You have to believe your own hype.
Yeah, but this is horror movie stuff that we're supposed to be talking about here. I do apologize, but
it's still podcast related.
Fair enough.
I was going in where me and the wife were doing pay-per-view watch-alongs where we'd watch the pay-per-view on here at the same time that the pay-per-view was going on and give our reactions, talk through it. So I'm actually happier with this because it's more in our control and it's not live.
We can go at our own pace. We don't have to be like, oh, what's that? Like halfway through a conversation.
Yeah.
But we were talking. Do you have any more thoughts on like sequels or all that?
I do want to say there are sequels that save a horror franchise. And how do they save the horror franchise? Like with Jason Lives, you have the movie before that where you don't even have Jason Voorhees behind the mask. You have the actual Jason Voorhees. Or with my review of Terrifier 2 last week where I'm like, I like it a little bit more because you still have art, but now you give Art, and I don't know if you're going to hate this take, but you give Art a plot line that can follow him through the next handful of Terrifier movies where you have him who's supposed to be the most evil piece of work out there.
We're going to ad break.
And then you have, well, that's why people got to subscribe. This is how I get people to subscribe.
Are we talking about subscribing now?
Well,
do you think they should subscribe?
I think if people want to subscribe, they should subscribe. Because when you are subscribed, you won't get ad breaks. You won't get a break in the action. You know, I hate to do that, but like going back to what I was talking about, where you do have sequels. And that's how I want to view this. Where you do have sequels that are going to be better than the originals. Like you were talking about Evil Dead 2, how you preferred Evil Dead 2 over the first Evil Dead.
I do. Well, I was more or less confused by it because was it a sequel? Was it a
Oh,
redo? But it was still called
it,
Evil Dead 2.
what really happened with that movie was he didn't have the rights for Evil Dead 1 anymore. And he wanted to do a whole series of Evil Dead movies. So the second movie's kind of how you're saying a redo, a remake. But I also think those movies that are made on a, and I am going to correct myself from last week. It was made on a $350,000 budget, which compared to other Hollywood movies is very low.
Oh yeah.
Like you look at some of these horror movies, they're made on a very shoestring budget where it's not that expensive, but you still have it where there's passion behind these. Maybe that's where some sequels go wrong, some sequels go good. Is if you don't have the same passion to make a sequel, you know, like you're just listening to the studio where the studio's like, that movie made us like a shit ton of money and it was cheaply made. We'll give you a little bit more money. Go fill another one.
But that kind of takes away the magic from it too, because I think movies with lower budgets are better than ones with high budget because
They're
low
punching up.
budget because they know they have to work harder to draw in the audience. So they'd be like, okay, what can we do to bring audiences in?
Yeah.
But then when they have the money, they're just like, we could do this, and we think it'll be fun. We think they'll like it. Instead of just be like,
What do we want to do?
Exactly.
There's,
It's just them having fun. I think is the most important part because it makes it fun for everyone else.
but anyways, I think we talked about sequels as much as we're going to talk about sequels because
Yeah, I just
Like-
want to talk about like difference between thriller and horror.
yeah, I will throw this one out. It's kind of like how I was kind of like needing and awing about the second Exorcist movie when I heard you saw that. Where
Yeah.
it's okay, like if it's your first one, see the original. The original's always the best one.
I was never a fan of it. The second one was okay.
Second one was, it was better than some of the worst.
Yeah.
Like,
Obviously. I just found it. Excuse me. I
What
just
was
found
that?
it. I just. Oh, you didn't understand that?
no, don't understand. I don't understand Wookiee.
But yeah, no. I can't remember what I was saying.
You know,
I think it's just. I think The Exorcist 2 fell into. What was it? Fell into the average. Not poltergeist, but ghost movie kind of. God, what's that called? Not
Paranormal?
Thank you, paranormal.
and
It felt very generic, just like Although I will say there was this one or two scenes in there that really caught me off guard. I'm just like, that's fucked up, bro.
yeah. Well, I think that is where we will cut it on the sequel talk.
Yeah.
So the next thing that you basically, because we basically text back and forth of like,
Oh.
hey, what do you want? We're basically Cody Rhodes of, what do you want to talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
And you sent me a text where you want to talk about the difference between horror and thrillers.
Mm-hmm. No.
And I decided maybe to sound a little bit more professional, I'll actually just fucking Google that. This is up on Scripps. But we want to talk about the difference between horror and thriller. Horror, first and foremost, the intent of a horror film is to frighten the audience by tapping into their unconscious fears. Those fears can be primal and typically centered on the body, represented in blood and gore. The unknown represented in supernatural and paranormal elements, and monsters representing in abnormal humans, animals, or the machine. Horror films try to evoke a strong emotion and visceral response and can include graphic scenes designed to shock, disturb viewers. Gore, scream, violence, and jump scares are common elements in horror movies. Examples: The Exorcist, Carrie, Let the Right One In, 28 Days Later, Nightmare on Elm Street, Rosemary's Baby, The Last Voyage of the Dement,
The Demeter.
Demeter, yeah, The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
The Angry Black Girl?
The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
I don't know. What a title. That's like
That's going on our watch list.
it is. It's like on par with The Man That Killed Hitler and then Bigfoot.
Yeah.
This is like one of those insane titles where you're just like, what? Did I read that right?
All right. Second description: thriller. Think of a thriller movie like a roller coaster with ups, downs, thrills, and chills. But instead of a loop-de-loop, however, thriller movies use suspense, tension, psychological intrigue, and criminality to increase the audience's heart rate while keeping them on edge of their seats. To sustain the emotional thrill ride, thriller movies often employ a central mystery or high-stakes situation that keeps the audience engaged and guessing what might happen next. Thrillers should be fast-paced and involve intricate plots and twists and turns, just like a roller coaster. While they might create a bloody scene with a dead body or monster, thrillers tend to rely less on blood and gore than horror movies, instead building anticipation and suspense. Examples: Seven. I'm going to disagree with the second movie listed here. The Silence of the Lambs, Jaws, Promised Young Woman, North by Northwest, Old Boy, Aliens, The Dark Knight.
I don't agree with Aliens on that.
I don't agree with The Silence of the Lambs, just because I'm going to basically quote Stephen King here and say, since horror movies are basically the ghetto of the genre of movies. Like, horrors are looked very unfavorable. Like, yeah, I have that.
Sorry, I was playing with stuff.
That's fine. We'll get you a fidget spinner for when we're on this. Yeah, The Dark Knight's a thriller. I can see why, but I would still put that in a comic book genre.
So, what is your... So we got the internet version, like difference between thriller and horror. What's yours?
I think with horrors is, the villain within like the first 10 to 20 minutes of the movie. Like, it's either the villain as in Michael Myers or Art the Clown. With thrillers, they want to keep you in suspense of who the villain is. Like in Silence of the Lambs, that Hannibal Lecter and Buffalo Bill are both the villains. You will also see the actual kills in this movie as they happen, rather than the kills happening in like a jump flashback and all that stuff. A lot of horror movies a while ago were calling themselves thrillers so that they would actually get Academy Awards. Which, I'm just going to say it, I don't give two shits about Academy Awards. I don't care if the movie's award winning. Show me the movie that, is not on that list, but like a guy who's a D-list director made. Like, show me those movies, because sometimes those movies are made with passion without looking at profit.
Oh yeah.
Like,
because one thing I like seeing about it is, have you watched the first Jurassic World movie?
So not Jurassic Park, but
no, but Jurassic World with Chris Pratt.
With that blue raptor and him being friends and him driving around.
Yeah, because
the raptors.
Like, I don't want to talk about the movie. I won't talk about one specific part of the movie. I think that the reason why Jurassic World, in the universe, as if like it was here right now. I believe that the reason why Jurassic World was more successful than Jurassic Park, not the movie, just the park itself, is because the first one cared about how much money they were going to make.
Yeah.
And then in Jurassic World, the head guy, he was just like, so how is everything looking? And then the one lady's like going through profits, be like, oh, we're bringing this much from this demographic, and then the dude's just like, no, no, no. Are the families having fun?
Yeah, like
And that's what I think is, yeah,
I mean, as long as Jeff Goldblum's in those movies, I'll still probably watch because like science finds a way. Like I love Jeff Goldblum. Um,
I do wanna. Are you done with like your?
I'm done with the analysis, like my view, where horror movies will actually show the kill. Horror movies aren't afraid to show you who's killing right away, with the exception to, well, no, I guess in the first 5 minutes of the original Halloween, you see them unmask Michael Myers, and you know
But that's the kid version.
that's him as a kid, and you don't know who's taking these other people out. But like they tell you in the beginning, like horror movies aren't afraid to give you the answer. Thrillers, I find sometimes you have to go back and rewatch, much like The Sixth Sense and Shutter Island, where you do have to go back and see where it's like, hey, where's the mind fuck? Um, both horrors and thrillers will have twist endings.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think
Can have,
they can.
yeah. Not that they always have, but they can have. Like I'm talking about, one of my wife's favorite movies, Sleepaway Camp.
The first one or the
The
second?
first one, where
Okay, that was a twist.
that was a twist. Um,
No, not my favorite twist.
I should just fucking put Cycle in my top 5. The amount of times I talk about Cycle
Mhm.
so far, where you have the twist where you think the mom's in the cellar, and then she slowly comes away, and you see that her face,
Ooh.
or you see at the end where Friday the 13th, where Jason comes out of the water and drags her down.
Yeah.
Okay, where would you put your OG? Because we don't
OG Friday the 13th.
to the end of the movie. I'd still classify it as a horror movie. You see the kills.
You do, but you can also see the kills in the thriller. This is kind of like where I kind of differ with how I view like the difference between horror and thriller. I think horror is something that stays with you even after the movie because that's something that you're thinking about. And then thriller is just something in that moment where you're just like, oh, ooh, that gave you like a jump scare. My heart's racing a little bit, but it's not enough to make me think about it during the night or when I'm
Would
leaving the theater.
you agree with this statement that all horrors are thrillers, but not all thrillers are horrors?
Ooh.
Like, I just thought about
You know, I think honestly, I think I would have to agree with that statement.
Yeah.
I think so.
Um,
Like there are thrillers out there that
I'm not afraid to show my kids.
exactly.
But then there's horror movies where I do not want my kids watching. Like, I was at Olive Garden last week, and I told my kid, I'm like, look, my kid, you're not watching the Terrifier series, because I can barely get through some of those movies.
Right?
At least I get, like, a little bit of a, often, just you, Danky. I'm echoing, that's okay. We'll figure that out later. Maybe my oh. That's got a point.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Because if you watch mine goes up a little bit. But
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My
yep.
bad.
Just kind of go like that and then like that. I don't want
See
to.
how they're supposed to see my gorgeous face.
Then just put that up.
I say my gorgeous face when I'm not that gorgeous. That's okay. There you go. This seems better.
I think it, like, if I look at it, mine's only picking up me. Let me know, Boomer Kaylee. You're our sound coordinator up there in the other.
Yeah. But so So I want you to give me, oh, sorry, to answer your question there, Bandit Rob, I would put the OG Friday the 13th as, believe it or not, as a thriller, not a horror.
All right.
That's where I would put it. What about you?
Um, like I just said, um, I view most horror movies as thrillers, but not all thrillers as horror movies. I would say I put that one on there, and that's just because I love the original Friday the 13th. Like the original five, or yeah, the original four. I think five is where you don't have Jason in it. Jason Lives number six. I could, but those movies are horror movies. They focus more on the kill, less on the plot. And I think for a thriller, you do have to focus a little bit on the plot.
Okay.
Like you do have to focus sometimes of like a whodunit mystery or don't know if you've seen this movie. There's a movie that was released, and the first kill he does is he puts a cat on like a stick pad and then puts it under intense light. Then he starts doing that to humans, where the more views were, and he's doing this online, and the more views go up, the more happens. Is I'm still wondering if I'm still echoing because I can see my mic going up with yours. So,
How's this?
oh, check that out. Oh, maybe it's your volume on that. I hope that doesn't go up. How does that sound? Do yours.
I'm talking. It's a bit low, but I can always raise that up, baby.
Yeah, making sure.
There you go. How's that looking?
I don't want you to get more in the yellow like my voice, but
More of the yellow? I was just because I'm too far, or oh yeah. See, I can. I think it's just because I talk somewhat quiet now because of my day job.
that's totally fair.
Ooh, we're touching toes.
Now you're good. Okay, we're having Rob, who's a sound guy, saying that
Yeah.
we're good. So
Not just a sound guy, the ultimate sound guy.
Oh, yeah.
Another good brother of mine. Ours. Love you, brother.
okay, so
So
you want to go on a quick break?
yeah, let's go on a quick break. But you know what we're going to do before that? While we're going on a quick break, I want you to think of one example of a horror movie and one example of a thriller.
Well, that's easy.
But we'll do that when we get back.
One example. Oh, I'm gonna do that right now. Actually,
You're going to do it right now?
for example, I think Seven is the best example for a thriller movie. Because what is in the box? At the end of the movie, you don't know what's in that box. And
Right.
you have
Speaking
it
of
where,
box.
it's not necessarily a horror movie. Like, you're not fearing this guy when he's in police custody because you have it where you know that this guy, he doesn't have any, well, he still has power, but he only has power up until a certain point. Horror movie, I'll say, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Kind of like a cop-out, but
Okay.
you have the guys just killing people. Like, and you want to know the fucked up thing? If the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the movie, we'll get to another topic that I have planned for the second hour here. Get to the part where they're going onto their property. They're knocking on the door. No one's answering. They don't have a constitutional right to answer their door. They break into their house. It's like that old, like, Simpsons slang where, and remember, Homer, anything that happens in your house is all legal. Perp comes into your house, you have anything you can do to them. And then Homer, you see, oh, Ned, come here. And he's just like getting ready. It doesn't work if you invite them. So, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they're not committing any crimes. Well, they technically are by using cannibalism. They have
You
to
can't
use.
commit murder in your own house.
Texas is fucked.
Mm.
Texas is fucked. They have a stand your ground law.
But they weren't stealing anything. They weren't doing it. They were just. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I read that meme somewhere, and it's just like, I get where that's coming from. All right, so we're going to go on a quick break. This is just so that we can get our wedgies dealt with.
Yep. I'll come back with my answers after the break.
A few moments later.
Anyway, so before break, you asked me to name a thriller. Named 7. Then you asked me to name a horror film. I named the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then I said something about along the lines that most horror movies are thrillers, but not all thriller movies are horror movies. Where I retract some of that statement. I think thrillers need to have a plot. And horror movies don't always have to have a plot.
Not really. I mean, like, look at Terrifier, the first one. Didn't really have a plot, it's just realistic fucked up
It
shit.
had an idea. But I think that one was more, how can we make this as... There used to be a line that people would use for Saw movie. It's called torture porn. How can we make the first Terrifier into a torture porn?
Mm-hmm. So would you consider that a horror or a thriller?
Terrifier? Easily a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
It, like I said, most...
Changes your outlook on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I will also say that a lot of horror movies got dubbed thrillers so that they could win Academy Awards. I think I did go on a huge ramble about that a little while ago. That is my personal viewpoint, and I don't care if it's wrong, if it's right. It's just, it is what it is.
Well, I see you're getting prepped up to do something that you love to do.
Well, that's well, no, I just have something very nice between my legs right now.
It's big.
And long. It's a bong.
Nice.
So I'm going to let you talk about your distinction between a thriller and a horror, providing examples, and that is due by the time I'm finished this rip.
Yeah.
And I will give you a grade rating. And if it's with the, it's going to be reversed. If it's with the blue pen, you didn't do too well. But if it's in the red pen, nice.
Pens.
I'm referring to school where...
Oh, I see.
My one teacher had one of those 4 pen things. And when you did an average job, you got a black or blue check mark. You did a really good job. Her favorite color was green, so she'll give you a green check mark.
The green?
But if it was just, no, you're wrong, it was red, and it fucking sucked. People can see in the background I have a red hoodie. I like the color red. I don't hate the color red. I do hate how
Right there.
mine isn't. We're going to have to play with the actual setup back here because, quite frankly, these are the 2 people that matter right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to get into my stuff while you suck on that big, long bong. But so for me, like I think I said just before break there, I found that thrillers are more something that you're just excited about in the moment, while then horror kind of
Irish
sticks with
Bandit
you
Rob
through.
said, Bo chicka wow wow.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow. Jesus. Damn. But so thriller to me is more in the moment, while horror has long lasting effects on the brain. Because like for me, I think the perfect, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but I believe A Quiet Place is considered a horror movie, not a thriller. The reason why I say that is because the movie was so quiet, you were tensed up. You're like, when there's the slightest sound, you're like, oh fuck. And then even after the movie, you kind of like are walking and you're just like, was that Is that too loud? Am I being too loud? Because some part of my brain when I finished watching that movie, I'm just like, I gotta stay fucking quiet. These things are indestructible, basically, and if I make even the slightest sound, if I'm walking, I'm dead. And to me, that's what the perfect horror movie is because it has your perfect mix of jump scares and like I'm not a big jump scare guy. I think horror should be more psychological. That's what that did to me.
That's a really good point. Still on. One of the movies that's very similar to A Quiet Place in the premise of don't make a sound is also Don't Breathe.
That's more of like what was that about? That was like about these guys trying to rob this house and
It was a blind veteran, and honestly, the main characters that die were more like the bad people, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So
Didn't they make a second one where he was where
he
was the good guy?
yeah, they. Which is weird how they do that for sequels is they make like, I know the attraction is always going to be the bad guy and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but
then sorry, going on to my thriller movie. Uh, honestly, I gotta go. I know this is gonna sound weird, but basically any slasher film, or yeah, I'd say any slasher film. So, for example, for me, I gotta go Friday the 13th. I don't find any of those to be horror because it's just you see the kill and it's in the moment. I don't after the movie. I don't go outside and be like, oh, he's going to get me. So to me, slasher films aren't considered horror. They're for me, they're part of that. What would you call it? Like gore porn?
torture porn.
Torture porn. That's what that was. But then there are some examples where certain killers were like on my mind, even like after the movie. Like I said, one of my top favorite scary movies is A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's because of Freddy's ability to like enter your nightmares or create them, right, and just like kill you in your sleep. So to me, that messed me up. Art the Clown, I think it's just because he was so fucked up that I'm just like, are people like this in real life?
You want to just kind of say where there are those people that will take a horror movie to the next level. And this is where I was going to bring on our next topic of the difference between reality and fantasy. that hit too well. Where we know, even though you live by a place called Crystal Lake,
I do. It's awesome.
we know Jason's not coming. But we also know that a person like John Wayne Gacy was a real person. And I actually have a follow-up question to this, because I sometimes find if I can have like a couple follow-ups off a couple questions, it usually works a lot better for these videos, because the idea of this is we have a conversation that just doesn't end until it's like time to end. Like I watch a lot of Joe Rogan where he's got probably like a list of 10 questions. And I think we're doing this one a little bit better than the first one because the first one was rushed.
Yeah, we were trying to fit everything into like an hour. It turned out to be like an hour and a half to 2 hours. But now we got time to just like kind of chill.
Yeah, we got that 7 o'clock till 11 o'clock vibes where we're not probably going to fill up the whole time. We might kick it on Jackbox tonight. Who fucking knows? We might have a couple rounds of No Mercy tonight. Who fucking knows?
I don't know what that is.
No Mercy? N64.
Oh, the game. Oh, I see.
The game, yeah. But going back to what I was saying is we have the ability right now to have a long, good question. So going back to the question, what do you think of when they take someone who is a John Wayne Gacy and make a movie out of him, or like the Dahmer series. Um, what are your opinions? I guess I'll say of like that style of movie.
So is it more like movies based on them, or movie like a documentary style, or it's just like this is what
Well,
happened, like Jeffrey
Docu-
Dahmer monster series?
well, Jeffrey Dahmer monster series wasn't a documentary.
It was just telling like the exact things that happened.
And the thing is, it's hard because a documentary, I see it as, I think you're looking for more of a biopic.
Probably.
Like that's what your definition of a documentary is for what you're saying. And you might have used documentary as kind of like a umbrella term. You know what I mean? Here's the thing. And I guess this makes me another quality for this. I did go to media school for a bit, and when I went to media school, I got like a lot of information of the differences between everything. They also went of how some movies who have a montage isn't a real montage. Like apparently Rocky's montage wasn't a real montage.
What?
But they were saying that a montage goes more on feelings and all that stuff. Well, training montages are kind of cool. Like I don't get it off track here, but that's another quality is I have experience from medias. So I guess what I'm not talking about documentaries, because documentaries are here's the guy, here's what he did, and normally with that, I won't comment on that style of filmmaking because they took all the facts and this is where it is. But like, would we be willing to review Monster, Dahmer, or the Gacy movie from 2004? Like, I think if we ever do go and make a watch along with them, we do have to include a donation where we'll probably put some donation money down on our end just so that we're not being exploitative, because there are survivors, but there's still people who will never know all the bodies buried in Gacy's. So there's probably people who know that don't want to come forward because they don't want to relive
What happened?
What happened? You have probably the whole city of the Milwaukee cannibal with Jeffrey Dahmer. Like a lot of people were against that, and I guess I'm trying to save us from the negativity of stuff like that.
I wouldn't say it's negativity. It's the fact that we're trying to not really raise awareness, but it's more like helping those who went through these traumatic events so we can learn about them and enjoy a different adaptation.
Yeah.
It's like, even while watching scary movies, as much as we cheer for the bad guy, we truly never want them to win. Like, if Art the Clown was real, honestly, I would hate to fucking run into that guy. Because, like, I'd be fucking traumatized. And they even did that in the Terrifier 3. Kind of, Sienna was met up with Jonathan, and Jonathan's roommate Cole had this girlfriend who like obsessed with their story,
Art the Clown,
and she wanted to get Sienna on her podcast, and Sienna was just, you could see the trauma, because like even over a question, like just asking her like questions not on a podcast, she's just like, what'd you see in his eyes? Like, I want to know how you feel, what's going through your mind. And then Sienna loses it, be like, what's on my mind? I'm struggling through this every single day. and that's what we're trying to. We don't want to exploit that.
No, we don't want to exploit that.
No, we truly want to help.
I want to see your mic real quick because I've been looking at the levels this whole time.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear him through me?
No, I'm looking at the levels and I'm getting up to the red.
Oh, you're getting up to the red, and I'm kind of still in the yellow there.
Yeah. So I just don't want one of us to be louder than the other so that one of us doesn't talk over the other one.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so
Because the lousy part is we can't hear this technically. We could if we put microphones on, but then we'll get jump scared easily.
I get scared.
There will be that fear that we are still making a horror podcast, and there are going to be those shows that I know we're going to end up talking about, like the Mendias brothers. But then that one's a curious one because most of the family want the boys out right now, and like they had probable cause.
Right. So don't hit me when I say it, but I have no idea who those boys are.
Documentary on Netflix, and then there's
You kind of had that up on, what was it, Netflix?
yeah, it's
We were somewhat talking about, but I have no idea who they are.
I mean, sometimes we'll run into like you'll ask me a question about a movie, and it's like, dude, I haven't seen that movie in like years, so it doesn't. It's kind of like how we were talking about. Thrillers will sometimes leave an indent.
A few moments later.
So, following up the second one, what are your thoughts of Hollywood making movies based on these individuals?
So
Like,
I don't really mind when they make movies out of them. It's when they try and make them into the good guys, because we were kind of talking, or I was kind of hinting at this earlier. I think it was earlier today, where it could have been last podcast too, where the
yeah, that's all right. Just try to make sure you're. I was telling Kaylee this the other day, where it's like you're almost talking directly into this, and you're just holding your voice like right here. You can. I don't want to say kiss the mic because it just sounds like you're like talking like right here, and it's kind of like how Chucky does his. Not Chucky the serial killer, but Chucky the guy, where he holds the mic way too close to his mouth, and you never hear anything. But you still have to be like
still somewhat close.
Yeah, this will also teach you how to hold the mic in a wrestling ring.
But then we don't really get to see your beautiful face. Just the arm, so.
Yeah, but this is all going on more of an audio kind of podcast where we'll have the video up so that people can see what the fuck we're doing.
That is fair.
So,
oh yeah, I guess so. Hey,
we're more focusing on the audio. With people can watch the video on YouTube, but most people will probably be checking this out on. We couldn't make it onto Spotify yet. I don't know if the account just has to be like double verified or something, but we'll be on there eventually. Yeah. But for right now, I will link where our thing is on Twitch, and we do have a new Discord link where I will be posting that. There's a lot of things I can do now, knowing that we don't have any sound quality issues. I just fucking play with the sound quality. We'll do that for like the first 2.5 podcasts, and then we'll see exactly where we fit nicely.
Yeah. But sorry, going back. Sorry, I do want to finish what I was saying.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just
make Hollywood sometimes making the bad guys turn into like the loved ones. Really, to me, the one that really stood out was the Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, because in that movie, they're clearly the bad guy. Second movie, they start off as a bad guy, but then something happens where you're kind of cheering for them at the end of the movie. And then the third one, you're full on cheering for them. That's what I found. Like
I
that's how I found
I
it.
was kind of going more and taking like real life people
No, but like that's
and taking those stories and making them into like a DC movie or a Dahmer.
yeah. But then
Like, do you think
there's
Hollywood has a responsibility that if they're doing this, they should get permission from some of the survivors, or do you think it lives in pop culture so that it's part of human history, not just
I think it's more or less human history than just theirs. I know that might sound crappy, but this is gonna sound so bad on my end. But it's not just about them. It's notifying everyone about what happened, kind of like almost like what signs to look out for in certain things. Because with Dahmer back in the day, it was just like, well, this is my gay lover. It's
yeah,
like, no, this is clearly a boy who's been drugged and he's under the age.
but they still let him go back.
Yeah, so stuff like that, I think.
Like they have police records, and you can actually hear the phone call after that episode, the real phone call,
Mhm.
and a lot of that shit is haunting because if they would have ran his name in the database, they would have found that he's already had ties to this family and all that stuff. And you wouldn't know that just by hearing the news. You would just know, oh, this guy killed and ate people. Like
Mhm.
that's all I knew of him. I didn't know that he was being a target against black people or being a target against kids.
Dark meat and tender.
Damn
Sorry.
it, man.
Sorry.
Canceled. Now, are you
I don't
happy?
fucking
Our
care.
podcast is now canceled because we're insensitive. But no, I go more on there's gotta be almost like a 50-50 balance. Like you don't really if it goes to court, I think at that point, isn't most court the people versus and aren't we part of the people? You know what I'm saying? Like when you go, or is it the state of versus like how like I guess it depends on the judge because
So do you think there should be like a court case if the survivors don't want it to happen, or
I think there should be a happy medium
I
where
definitely think there should be like certain percentage of the movie, the amount that the movie makes should go to the survivors.
even prior to that, I think when you're first making the movie, you should be donating to some of the causes connected to the survivors. But it's like, did every one of these go, like, did every movie ever made about Jeffrey Dahmer, did every movie before they make it go to a charity or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no, not every movie did. And I do think we should very well draw a line in the sand where this is reality. People like John Wayne Gacy, people like Ted Bundy, people like the Zodiac, people like Jeffrey Dahmer do exist. Still exist to this day. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Canada's most prolific serial killer, that pig farmer down in Victoria and Vancouver area. Okay, so I don't know this guy's name, and I do not want to give him too much clout, but he has 49 for his kill count. He has 49 victims. He was trying to make it an even.
Yeah.
He was a pig farmer, and how he would dispose of the bodies is he would feed the meat to the pigs, and he would take the bones to a rendering. So, if you think about it, those pigs were human-fed pigs that people would also eat bacon out of. And this guy actually existed. He doesn't have a movie about him, nor do I really think he should. But you haven't heard about him, and he's up for parole next year, I believe. I don't think
Next year?
Yeah. You know what? Fuck it.
Irish Bandit Rob said he was the inspiration for a Criminal Minds episode, though.
That is fair. So the question is it better if they're inspiration or horror movie villains? Or should they be making movies?
Irish Bandit Rob said, I think he's dead.
I don't think so. I was listening to a Jericho podcast, and he was talking about
I'm gonna look something up too, because
Robert Pinkton. Oh, he just died this year.
oh, May 31st of this year.
So he just died.
Irish Bandit Rob said, I thought so.
But so the question really is, and I guess here's the answer. I think if you're going to make movies based on these people, you should really either tell the full story without adding any gaga to it. And I think you should be willing to donate a proceeds of your film
Marley and Baxter
to
said,
a charity
don't forget
event.
to join the Discord https://discord.gg/jc8khpz.
Sorry, what was the question?
How would you go around basically being able to sleep at night when you're the director of one of these? You donate a proceeds to charity.
I would honestly, there are a lot of charities out there that do their own thing. So if I were the director, I would try and get in contact with the people themselves,
Yeah.
so I could send them the money directly instead of like going through a whole organization that they take a portion of the proceeds. Because I think that money should just go straight to them.
Now
You don't need a whole organization because that's just a money grab for them.
Now, there are a lot of fucked up people in the world making movies like this. And I saw a couple of years ago with Dahmer, where a lot of girls on TikTok were being like, I know what he did was bad, but if you actually look up like pictures of Evan Peters and Jeffrey Dahmer, they're not bad looking people.
They're so pretty to look at, even for guys. They're so cute and handsome. Yeah, get fucked.
But like with just kind of like the statements, you're going to have people like that.
Mm-hmm. So I would have to double check this. This is somewhat on topic, somewhat off topic, but I do have to double check this.
Irish Bandit Rob said, Ted Bundy was a handsome, charismatic guy.
Yeah, but so are you, Rob.
I mean, with Ted Bundy too, you don't know how many people he killed. Like, he said he killed around 38 people, but a lot of forensics and all that stuff are saying he probably killed way more.
Mhm.
I think they only found him for like 3 murders. He actually said, no, I've killed like 38 people.
Irish Bandit Rob said, aw shucks.
But yeah, so I would have to double check, but I'm pretty sure someone, like one of my family members on my mom's side, he's dead now, thank the Lord. I'm pretty sure he did kill someone and did eat them. So I may have had someone in my family who killed someone and ate someone. But like I said, I want to double check that. I don't want to give any false information, but I'm pretty sure that's a thing with my family.
Turns out he was just giving a lot of guys blowjobs. I mean,
It was me.
I should.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Well, this is the idea. We're not gonna we're at the point with our lives too where I'm believe that there's no such thing as saying the wrong thing. That
I could
truth
say the N-word.
matters. What? That truth matters. And I'm not worried about like if you say, well, if you're worried about voicing your opinion, you know,
Mhm.
like these movies that get made about real life serial killers and all that stuff, they're good for the general information. But then it's like, why wouldn't a biography be better?
Because I don't think more. So, biography isn't necessarily a documentary.
A biopic and a documentary are two different ways of filming.
Because I'm more into the like as gross as it was, but I did enjoy the Dahmer series. So was that more of a biopic?
That's a biopic. And then you had the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes.
Yeah. So I like the biopic better because for me it was I focused more on like if things were in a movie sense, not an educational sense. So I learned a lot just straight from
The bottom left. So,
what was I talking about?
uh,
Oh yeah, I like biopics because I learn more from movies when I don't realize it compared to documentaries where I'm just like, oh, it's like school. I have to learn about it. I'm more of a movie guy, and I find that most people are as well. And they find fun fact, or not really fun facts, but just facts are more interesting to them than being taught.
I mean, I agree. I can watch the tapes and all that stuff, but there's a lot of times where when you're watching the documentary series, it kind of takes in comparison. Like you could say Jeffrey Dahmer ate people and all that stuff. You could say that that's what happened on a documentary, but you won't get that scene where Evan Peters is eating something in his apartment and you don't. This is sometimes what I like about some horror films. You do not have to spell out everything. You let the talking about serial killers, you let kind of like what the Midnight Stalker said to that one interviewer. You let the quote stand. You let what happens in a thing. You do not have to say that Jeffrey Dahmer was eating that person organ or whatever or heart. You leave that up to interpretation. And you're seeing that because what's up? No, what are you trying to do?
I'm just trying to like get close to my face because I like leaning back.
If you want, it's over there, do you?
Oh, I'm good with how where my legs are.
If we go slide up just a little bit more.
Oh, we could do that. Oh, too close. Hello.
Too close.
Here we go.
Welcome to Playing with Mics,
Beauty testicle.
starring Otis and Austin.
Where did you get those? Those are awesome.
I got those in Edmonton. I got those at a fantasy hotel.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw those, I'm like, I'm wearing those.
Oh, when was the last time you actually wore these?
Uh
Please say yesterday or today.
10 nights ago.
Nice.
Those are basically my slippers that if I have to run outside, I'll wear them. I don't care. Slippers.
You know what pisses me off? I had a job interview at a store at Midtown Mall.
Mm-hmm.
Not Hot Topic, but the other one.
Ventures.
Yeah, that one. And they didn't hire me, which I mean, hey, that's okay. They don't have to. But they hyped me up so much. They're like, "Oh yeah, you can dress however you want. If you want to come in one day with like animal slippers, at least as long as you're not naked, you're good." I wanted to wear my draft slippers, but they gave me a call back saying like, "Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to go with you." That really hurt because I want to wear animal. I want to wear my draft slippers in while I'm working because those things are comfortable.
Ever tried wearing them in the ring?
No, but I should. Be
Like-
like Wendy Chu from NXT.
I thought you hated her.
I do. I really do. I hate the whole sleepy gimmick.
I mean, it's easier to pin. That's the problem.
Yeah. At least it's a character instead of just normal man. Or
If
lady.
you want to.
Oh yeah, that crushing my nuts feel good. Oh.
Anyways, we were talking about real life serial killers being depicted by Hollywood. I think the other thing, if they are being depicted by Hollywood, I don't think for.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
I was kind of mentioning that with the whole Dahmer girls, and there's always going to be that one fucked up kid that watches a horror film and gets inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Not inspired in a good way, where, you know, we let out kind of our horror fandom in metal, in a podcast, in gaming, and we're satisfied. We're talking about like these people who watch a horror film and then get inspired to go out and kill people. Like, I think that's kind of fucked up.
So, how influential do you think those movies are about serial killers or just slasher movies?
The ones about serial killers now, real life serial killers or fantasy serial killers?
Both. Anything that's depicted on the big screen, do you think those influence people to do what they did?
Maybe about 35,
That's a lot. That's a
What-
high percent.
would be in. Well, you gotta remember, I'm talking about those really fucked up people, like the people, and you can argue because some dude dressed like the Joker and shot up the movie theater
I do remember
for Dark Knight Rises. So would you then say, hey, no more Joker movies or no more superhero?
that. No, I'm not saying don't make those moves. I'm just wondering like
I
how
think
influential are they?
I think they're as influential because you got to remember there's a low percentage of psychopath people.
Yeah, but
There's a low percentage, and
but
when
20
those,
25%, dude, that's like
I think there's generally fucked up people. I think there's generally fucked up people that don't need media to be fucked up because they experience the I don't remember what this thing is actually called, but it's a triathlon for people who have experienced uh parental abuse. And I mean, like, you break a lamp and your dad spanks your ass. Well, you kind of are paying for being a dumbass breaking a lamp. What I'm talking about is you didn't do jack shit. Your dad comes home after a long day at work and takes his frustrations of work out on you. Is the level of child abuse I'm talking about. And they experience abuse. They experience arson. They have a tendency to want to burn something. and then they have the whole bedwetting, injuring animals.
Mhm.
Like, I think there is a percentage of those people that do not need Hollywood to inspire them to do any of that shit. Like, don't think Charles Manson had to be inspired to go out and create a family of his own after, he didn't have much of a family and he got locked up at a very young age. Like, that guy had a very tough childhood, and I don't think that is an excuse, but I do think whatever happens in your couple years of life and your teenage years will dictate the person you become later
Mhm.
on. Going back to the fucked up people, I'm talking about those, and I'm talking about myself in high school too. I'm talking about those kids that are just fucked up for the sake of being different and not fitting into it.
Mhm.
When those kids get exposed to the wrong horror film without the right outlet, you get stuff of people going into schools and shooting that shit up. I think, I don't think America has a school shooting problem. I think America has a bully problem where these kids get pushed to do this fucked up well.
Mm.
But like I said before, like 35% is where I think the media has influenced, even as low as 20.
Okay, so for me, I think that's such a high number. Like, I think that's way too, in my opinion,
Mhm.
because quarter that's like 1 in 4 people. That's like you, me, Rob, and
Oh, no, I'm talking about like psychopaths, like already, like people who aren't, like, because under society we're normal.
because like what I'm talking about is just like in
Oh, mass population?
yeah.
No, hell no, hell no. I would then drop that number down to a 3 to 2% of influence, because most people who are influenced behind horror movies aren't going out and killing people, but that wrong kid who is already experiencing fucked up shit at home. Like, I'm going to use Jeffrey Dahmer as an example. Jeffrey Dahmer was already fucked up because his parents they neglected him and left him at home.
And they were constantly fighting as well.
Yeah.
He didn't have a good home life.
And his dad taught him how to rip the bones off of animals, so he was already abusing animals at a very young age.
Yeah, but it's not like they were alive animals. Like
Well,
from what I learned from the
chopped up a
Dahmer.
fish.
Well,
But
that
it was
was.
catch and release.
Or was it just that?
It was just catch and release, and he just. But anyways, I'm talking about these types of people that he sees a movie like Star Wars and The Exorcist Part 3, and he goes out and buys those yellow contacts so he can feel as powerful. These people, those are kind of more of the people I'm talking about, like the Columbine kids who arguably played Doom set up as their school and already had the plan. These are people who, like the Joker said in The Dark Knight, only needs a small push. And like, if we're talking mass population, I'm going down to 2% of these people get that. Not just horror movies, but media. And I
For me, I think I would go even lower than that because that's still quite a bit. Because
yeah, I know. I'm trying to go with the lowest possible number without going into like the 0.25.
no, fair enough.
Like, I'm still trying to keep somewhat of a percentage on this thing.
Yeah, for me, I'd say it's probably like 1%, maybe.
I'd say if we're going the whole population, people inspired to do these things. Like, I don't think Dahmer needed The Exorcist 3 to
Have you ever heard of the YouTube channel The Ewu Crew?
No.
I highly recommend that because it's basically about like it is true crime, and there's this case about these two. I think it was two 13-year-old girls. I want to say, they were influenced by urban legend, the Slender Man.
Oh, I have heard of this
Yeah, so
story,
they
but I
covered
just
that.
haven't heard the podcast. And each one of them were trying to appease Slenderman by each stab wound. I think they had to do like
Something like that, yeah. So like it's not just like real life people, but even like the creepy pasta fan.
well, that's still media for me. That is
They're
still that is like you cannot tell me that a Stephen King book just because it's not a movie isn't a form of entertainment or media in a sense. I know that might go against being
there's digital media, and then there could also be media, which is like newspaper, books,
yeah.
anything that's not digital.
But yeah, I think this was a pretty good one so far.
Also, yeah. How do we got?
We've been talking for about 2 hours.
Yeah, just over probably.
Just over. 5 for 3. Yeah. All right.
We don't want to.
No, but we could, I think next time we will probably be doing either a game of Until Dawn on
Oh,
Irish Bandit Rob said, almost 2 and a half.
you know, let's go until like 9:30.
yeah 30.
Yeah.
I might be on later on with Jackbox, but that won't be. Or I might just actually just like edit this together. Let's go down with a rundown. So what's our final opinions on serial killers and the potential of future serial killers being influenced by movies?
I think with how honestly, I with how good our crime system is, because or no, I would say crime system, but with how easy, I don't want to say easy either, but with how technology has evolved, it is easier to catch people when they're like small hints. It's just, do people care until it happens? Because like I watch a lot of that Ewu Crew, especially when I was working at my last job. I
Yeah.
have my podcast, and I know I shouldn't have been, but I had one earbud in, have my earmuffs over top. I'd be listening to it all day long. But with things that they can like track down, like, I don't think it's. I think it's easier for them to catch back in current day rather than like days of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh yeah, you have DNA, and not only that, but you have like surveillance cameras
Oh,
almost everywhere.
yeah, and fun fact, this past December, so like last year, I was on a jury duty about a murder. I'm not allowed to say who, because that's actually against the law for me. But I was on a jury duty about a murder,
That's
and the things that I learned that we can do with the technology that we have, it is insane.
mhm. They can track if you're missing and you're a missing person. Your bank can track down where your card is used everywhere, and ATMs have cameras on the inside of them.
Oh,
So there's a lot, and even those like crappy ones at like a mom and pop store that has an ATM, they can track that shit. So I do see your point. I think we're past also the golden age of serial killers. I think someone said that. I think 70s through 90s was your golden age, and then like you have it where a lot of people got like found out pretty quick, like the name found, torture, kill. The BTK killer got kind of caught right off the um, top of the 2000s. You had the San Francisco Strangler getting found out. I think that's the guy's name.
Well, I know this is gonna sound bad, but that's something I kind of miss with like modern day is all these like murders out there or these because I don't know if we have like serial killers anymore. It's just more just one-off murders.
You have theories of serial killers.
Yeah,
Like up north in Canada, you have a lot of the Aboriginal people going missing in northern BC, and they have a belief that it's a handful of serial killers or something else happening up there. Speculations, because that's all you can do on crimes like that is speculate.
yeah. 'Cause one thing I want nicknames back. So I want the Aboriginal grabber or I know this is off the top of my head.
The Aboriginal grabber.
The,
Why don't you just call Levy Day that?
Levy Day.
Yeah, because
Levy.
isn't he with the matriarch? What did he be?
No, that's the Aboriginal fondler.
Oh, okay. Hopefully, he never sees it.
I don't think he would.
I don't think.
I should give him a message just to like, hey, check this out.
But like, I get what you mean, like the Boston Strangler or the BTK killer. But I think also back then they were naming themselves. Like I think the Zodiac killer named
I
himself.
think he did name him.
I think the Night Stalker named himself.
What
I
about
think
Jack the Ripper, because
Jack the Ripper was.
that had to have been media, because he did leave notes, but they were not in English. They were in his own like special symbol language.
Yeah, I think he did leave some notes in English.
Good
We'll have to like second question. Are we going to be kind of talking about some of these killers as well, like Jack the Ripper, BTK?
Oh, that's going to be a whole nother podcast, because
yeah,
we could save one podcast strictly for Charles Manson.
that would be like the longest podcast.
Oh, guaranteed. Because like, did he
Um,
kill people? But was he guilty of those murders, even though he never killed anyone? Or like that's just foreshadowing what's to come.
I think with him, when you send your followers out to go kill people on your behalf, that's like giving the argument of did Hitler gas any of the Jews? Like, was he personally the one pressing the button to gas them? So he is.
But then, do you blame the mothers of these killers? Be like, did they kill them? No, it's just like
Yeah, I
I can't remember who. It could have been like from a movie or a TV show, but this guy who was on death row made a note to his mom blaming her for like, I'm going to die because you told my dad it was okay that I stole certain things that to give me a break when I was killing these animals and like do all this. I was never shown the proper way, but would that have even really like mattered? Because
I think personal responsibility
yeah,
comes a lot. Like, not saying a lot, but you know, I was born in the early 90s where we didn't really say stop the child abuse till like I was like 4 or 5. So there are times where I was spanked, but I was spanked for doing the wrong things.
mm,
But even people right now are arguing like, oh, those people should have been spanked more when they were kids. And
there are certain circumstances where I think that is punishment, not or that's discipline, not abuse.
yeah, but at the same time, like, you do see some of these serial killers that their parents went too far. Like
Oh
coming home
yeah,
drunk.
absolutely.
Like John Wayne Gacy's dad went too far. And I do think he is just as much to blame as John Wayne Gacy. Because I think if they would have raised him properly, I think maybe he would have killed some people, but it wouldn't be as much people because I went back and a lot of these serial killers
also suffered from being either bisexual or gay, and at the time it was frowned upon heavily in society.
Very much.
So I do know there's some of that where if they had the right to express themselves, and I honestly think with Dahmer there was like the feeling of wanting to belong and not having someone leave him, and he was very tortured by his parents leaving him alone for those 3 months where he was a very lonely individual. So final statements.
Not too much right now. There's a lot of stuff I still want to get. Do want to talk about, but those are for like future podcasts. We'll definitely get in contact about that.
Yeah, well, we'll write out next week's script because on Halloween it's just going to be us basically I'm going to be moving that, and as you can see I have one of those, so I'm going to be moving one of these over to the white table, and we're going to be shot from like over here, play along of Until Dawn this Halloween.
I'm excited.
I am too. I'm never not excited for these. So final thoughts on our sequels. Always worse than the originals.
I won't say always worse, but in most cases, sequels are not as good. Doesn't mean that they're bad, but just not as good. And if anything, I actually find that the third ones are usually better than the second.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we made this mistake. Let's go back and fix it.
I will say that there are some sequels that are better than the originals. But in the most part, there are a sequel to a sequel that later on kills the franchises. Too many sequels can be harmful to a movie franchise.
Mm-hmm.
That's my final thoughts on that. Thriller versus horrors.
Thriller versus horror. Just because I believe that certain like Friday the 13th is not considered a horror in my personal opinion, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I love thrillers. Don't get me wrong. I love them. I think they're right up there with horror for me. So like, if I just categorize something into horror or thriller, it's just my personal opinion. I still think they're great movies, but I just don't think they fit in that category.
So my statement is going to be most but not all for both these statements. Most horror movies are thrillers, but not all thrillers are horror movies. That's going to be my first statement. My second statement is most horrors will have the kill on camera. And some thrillers do have that, but some thrillers are more mindfucks. And yeah, I do disagree slightly with the first Friday the 13th not being, I think, just because Jason has that spiritual, he can not die. I think he is under the whole unstoppable force. But so we talked about sequels, thrillers. I don't want to get back into talking about the serial killers on that because we just spent an hour.
Let's just leave it on. There's a lot of fucked up people.
There is. I do think that if Hollywood is making a movie about a real life serial killer, they do owe it to the family to donate a little bit of their proceeds to profits or however much the movie's being made to these victims' families, just so it's like, not trying to glamorize these guys. We're just making a movie about these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all we talked about today.
I think so too.
Media inspiring future serial killers and all that stuff. I think it's just making sure you know the difference between what is fantasy and what is reality. There, I just summed up the whole podcast.
There we go.